You're walking into work on a cold Chicago morning. Coffee in one hand, car keys in the other. Heels clicking softly against wet pavement. The streets are quiet. Too quiet. Just grey skies, slushy sidewalks, and the distant sound of traffic somewhere far away. You reach the office parking lot. Only a few more steps to the front door. Then suddenly, a red van pulls beside you. The side door slides open. And before you can even scream, hands grab you. Hard. Fast. Your keys scatter across the sidewalk. Your makeup bag spills open across the concrete. One of your shoes slips off. Then the other. People passing by later would say it looked like you vanished in seconds. Like the street swallowed you whole. And for 5 months, nobody knew where you went. Tonight, we are going to talk about the Chicago Ripper crew. Welcome to the podcast you can't unhear. Chicago during the early 1980s felt colder somehow. Not just the weather, the atmosphere. Factories shutting down, crime rising, suburbs growing endlessly outward. Long grey roads stretching between neighbourhoods, streetlights flickering against dirty snow. Serial killer stories always feel scarier before smartphones existed. No GPS. No phones tracking locations. No instant alerts. Once somebody disappeared, they could vanish into darkness completely. The first victim connected to the Ripper crew was Lori Borowski, 21 years old. Secretary, described as friendly and hardworking. The kind of person whose life still felt like it was just beginning. May 15th, 1982. Started as an ordinary morning. Lori parked near her office in Elmhurst, walked toward the building, probably already thinking about work. Lunch later. Weekend plans. Normal things. Then suddenly, she disappeared. When Lori's boss arrived, the scene felt wrong immediately. Her car still parked outside. Keys scattered across the pavement. Cosmetics spilled across the sidewalk. And then, the shoes. Just sitting there, abandoned near the curb. There's something deeply horrifying about abandoned shoes at crime scenes. Because they instantly make violence feel real. You can almost picture the exact moment panic happened. The exact second someone was dragged away against their will. Police searched desperately. Weeks passed. Then, months. Nothing. No body. No witnesses. Just silence. And meanwhile, other women across Chicago in the suburbs were disappearing too. Linda Sutton. Shy Mack. Sandra Delaware. Different women. Different locations. But the same horrifying pattern underneath. Abduction. Violence. Bodies later discovered showing ritualistic mutilation. That word, ritualistic, is actually terrifying. Because it implied something worse than random murder. Something organised. Something obsessive. Something almost cult-like. Then finally, 5 months after Lori vanished, hunters discovered skeletal remains in a cemetery. The body was identified as Lori Borowski, and the autopsy horrified investigators. Because this wasn't just murder. The injuries appeared deliberate, specific, almost surgical. Like whoever committed the crimes believed they were participating in some kind of twisted ritual, cases become much scarier when killers seem driven by belief systems instead of impulse, because belief makes people capable of horrifying things. The breakthrough came from Beverly Washington, one of the few women who survived an attack. Imagine that for a second. Surviving something like this. Living long enough to remember the faces, the fear, the vehicle. Beverly described a red Dodge van. That detail changed everything, because suddenly, the police weren't hunting a shadow anymore. Now, they had something physical, something people might actually notice. Investigators eventually traced the van to a man named Robin Gecht, 30 years old, contractor, father of 3. And from the outside, he looked painfully ordinary. That's the unsettling thing about many serial killers. No glowing red eyes, no dramatic warning signs, just someone blending quietly into everyday life. But Robin Gecht carried another disturbing connection too. Years earlier, he had worked for John Wayne Gacy. Not casually, actually helped build the patio where several of Gacy's victims were buried beneath the house. That feels cursed somehow, like violence already existed around him long before the Ripper crew began. Police started surveilling Gecht closely, and that's when they noticed something strange. He wasn't alone. 3 younger men constantly surrounded him. Edward Spritzer, Andrew Cockeralis, and Thomas Cockeralis. The media would eventually call them the Ripper crew. A name that still sounds horrifying decades later, because it doesn't sound like random criminals. It sounds organized, predatory, like a pack. Thomas Cockeralis was only 22 years old. Low IQ, reportedly around 75. Quiet. Socially awkward. People later described him as the least likely member of the group to become a serial killer, which somehow makes everything scarier, because evil rarely looks cinematic in real life. Sometimes it looks passive, confused, ordinary. In November 1982, police finally moved in and arrested the group. And almost immediately, Thomas broke. Not Gecht. Not the others. Thomas, the youngest, the weakest psychologically. And once he started talking, the case transformed into something straight out of a nightmare. Thomas described Gecht as a cult-like leader, someone obsessed with ritual violence. According to Thomas, they drove around Chicago's suburbs searching for women alone, then brought victims back to Gecht's attic on North Paulina Street. The image of that attic feels horrifying even now. Blacked-out windows, dim lighting, tools arranged carefully. A room hidden above an ordinary house where terrible things allegedly happened night after night while neighbours slept below. Thomas led police directly to the attic, and step by step, he described details investigators hadn't released publicly. How the women were abducted, how Gecht controlled the others, how rituals supposedly took place inside the attic. The details sounded almost too extreme at first, like something from a horror movie. But then Thomas revealed information only someone present could have known, including locations connected to the victims' remains. And suddenly, investigators realized the nightmare was real. The media exploded. Chicago newspapers filled with headlines about satanic rituals, serial murders, women hunted from a red van. But to be fair, The early 1980s were already filled with paranoia around cults and satanic panic. So the Ripper crew became larger than life almost instantly. Not just killers. Monsters. Then came the trials. Thomas was convicted in 1985 and sentenced to life in prison. But the legal system became messy afterward. His lawyers argued the confession had been coerced. Appeals followed. Convictions overturned. And suddenly prosecutors feared the case could collapse entirely. So eventually, they offered Thomas a deal. Plead guilty to one murder charge in exchange for a 70-year sentence. Sounds permanent. Except it wasn't. Because under Illinois sentencing laws at the time, good behavior cut the sentence in half, meaning 70 years became 35. Meanwhile, his older brother Andrew received the death penalty and was executed in 1999. Robin Gecht received life imprisonment. Edward Spreitzer also received death sentences, later commuted after legal changes. But Thomas? Thomas stayed quiet, followed prison rules, avoided attention, and waited. Then came 2019, 35 years later. This part of the story feels surreal. Because after decades of existing almost like urban legend, Thomas Kokorales walked out of prison alive. 60 years old, grey-haired, quiet. Just another man exiting prison doors. Except 18 families remembered exactly who he was. The only place willing to house him was a Christian ministry in Aurora called Wayside Cross. And immediately, public outrage exploded. Parents panicked. Residents protested. The mayor got involved. People terrified about having one of the last surviving Ripper crew members living near schools and neighborhoods. But honestly, can you blame them? Because no matter how much time passes, some crimes never stop feeling dangerous. Then Thomas did something nobody expected. He gave interviews. And suddenly, he started claiming he was innocent. He said police fed him details, that he was manipulated, that he was just a dumb fool. But there was one huge problem with that story. Police hadn't discovered Laurie Borowski's body yet when Thomas confessed. He led investigators there. That contradiction still haunts this case, because it leaves people trapped between two terrifying possibilities. Either a brutal serial killer walked free after serving reduced time, or one of the most horrifying murder cases in Illinois history was partially built on false confessions. Both possibilities feel disturbing. Today, Thomas reportedly still lives quietly through ministry support in Illinois. Robin Gecht remains imprisoned until at least 2042, still refusing to fully confess, still silent. And the families? They're left carrying the weight of everything that happened inside that red van all those years ago. Laurie Borowski's family eventually created a butterfly garden in her memory, a peaceful place. Flowers, light, quiet. Something beautiful built after unimaginable darkness. That's what stays with me most about stories like this. Not the killers. Not the courtroom drama, but the victims. Young women who woke up expecting ordinary days and crossed paths with something evil hidden inside a red van driving through grey Chicago streets. And maybe somewhere tonight, that old attic on North Paulina Street is still sitting quietly in the dark. Empty. Silent. But holding memories nobody can ever fully erase. As always, stay safe out there, guys. I'll see you on the next episode of the podcast You Can't Unhear.